Guys, I'm really pleased to welcome back to the podcast our friend Peter Schweizer. He is an author, he's a researcher, he's president of the Government Accountability Institute. He's also host of a weekly podcast called The Drill Down. He's a New York Times bestselling author with multiple bestsellers under his belt. Most recently, the #1 New York Times bestseller called Red-Handed. Peter, welcome to the podcast. It was also, of course, great to have you in the movie. And one of the themes that you talk about is the political targeting by the Biden regime. Now, just recently, we've seen a new stash of reports from Jim Jordan at the Government Oversight Committee about the intense coordination between various aspects of the government, not one or two agencies, but dozens of them, working hand in hand with nonprofits and hand in hand with the digital platforms, creating this elaborate regime of censorship. It seems that this is a bottomless pit, and every time you dig, there's a more elaborate network of colluders to be found.
I think you're right, Dinesh, and congratulations on the film, by the way. It's really a remarkable accomplishment. So well done. I was glad to be, a small part of it. But you're exactly right. And here's the thing. What we've seen is an evolution in America from the national security state that began, say, 20 years ago, focusing on the so-called war on terror. And the idea was we are going to look for, obviously, military ways to defeat them, but we're also going to look for legal ways and other ways to sort of defeat the enemy and their messaging. They called it lawfare, for example. Well, what's happened is a lot of the techniques that they used to use against domestic terrorists and Islamic extremists in the United States, they have now using against political opponents, people that are running for the same political office as them. And that is what we've seen in the large expanse of the national security state, which is dominated by the deep state, which tends to be aligned with the Democratic Party. And so we're seeing that in full force. We saw that in the 2020 election when it came to a lot of the merging of the apparatus of private companies, I'll put that in quotation marks, like Twitter, which were essentially doing the bidding of government agencies like Homeland Security. But now it's even become larger than that. Jim Jordan is revealing that there are other government agencies involved. They were targeting specific people like Newt Gingrich, the former Speaker of the House. And this is where you see the merging of the government with large corporations, or what you could potentially call corporatism, which is, of course, what Benito Mussolini created and which essentially became fascism. We're not there yet, but this is the first sort of dipping of the toe into the water. We're now kind of ankle deep, maybe knee deep, and we may be fully submerged pretty soon in a situation where there is a merging of the two interests. And that is, I think, the alarm bells that need to be going off right now.
Where do you think, Peter, does the motivation come from on the side of the digital platforms? In other words, it's very understandable that the government would be like, not only do we have this immense direct power, but now if we can work through surrogates and get the private sector to do our bidding, all the better for us. But you would think that a lot of the guys who started these digital platforms, people like Zuckerberg, came out of a quasi-libertarian tradition where they were, we want a free internet, we want to basically be our own pioneers, we want to open up the information highway. This was a lot of their rhetoric, and I assume sincere, going back a couple of decades. How do you think that they kind of got into this kind of ugly bedfellows relationship with the government?
No, that's a great question, and I think a very important question. To me, it's a two-word answer: regulatory power. If you're Mark Zuckerberg, yeah, you started Facebook. You had sort of this libertarian view, the Wild West of the World Wide Web. You're creating and building this company. Where is Mark Zuckerberg today? He runs a massive corporation that has a lot of regulatory concerns before the federal government. If he wants to acquire another large company, that may need regulatory approval. If there are issues of communications that occurs on his platform, he could potentially be in violation of federal law as it relates to anti-terrorism legislation, et cetera. So there are so many regulatory things that these large companies have to abide by. They want to stay on the good side of the cop, right? If you live in a city where there's all kinds of rules, all sorts of things that the police can do to essentially fine you or to throw you into jail, you want to make sure you're on good terms with the cops. And so when the cops come and tell you, hey, we need a favor, we need you to do this or that, you're going to do it because it's going to get you favor or currency with that regulatory apparatus. So this is a huge problem. No large company can avoid it. No medium-sized company can avoid it. And if they want to grow, their entire business model is based on massive growth, getting new subscribers, building new platforms, new capabilities. That's oftentimes going to require some kind of regulatory approval, and you want to stay on the good side of the regulators. I think that's a big part of the motivation.
We'll be right back with Peter Schweizer, president of the Government Accountability Institute, his latest book, Red-Handed. Last month, the G20 announced it welcomed discussion of the effects of implementing central bank digital currencies in their countries. These digital currencies could allow the government to track every purchase you make. They could even allow officials to prohibit you from purchasing certain products or easily freeze or seize part or all of your money. In essence, they enable the government to control your finances. Concerned Americans are diversifying their assets into physical gold with the help of Birch Gold Group. If you want a physical asset held in a tax-sheltered retirement account, you should call Birch Gold. Debbie and I are customers. We buy our gold through Birch Gold. But find out for yourself. Text Dinesh to 989898. They'll send you a free information kit on gold. Here's the easiest way to become a Birch Gold customer. If you have an IRA or a 401k from a previous employer, Birch Gold can help you convert it into an IRA in gold, and you don't pay a penny out of pocket. Text Dinesh to 989898. Claim your free information kit on gold. Then call Birch Gold, because if digital currency becomes a reality, it'll be nice to have some gold to fall back on.